It is now being recorded. Welcome to the Oily Underground, female hormones, sort of focusing on PCOS, but that's like an umbrella term. So we're going to get into that. This is the worst bedtime has been since I've been here. And obviously that's happening when I'm here doing the Zoom. So that is you mamas. You know what I'm saying? Because not me, at least not yet. Okay. So what we're going to start off with is just a very quick bio lesson. We're going to talk about your menstrual cycle because that is what female hormones are sort of surrounded by, right? And I have found, including myself, I know that I bleed once a month, but other than that, okay, I'm not sure that I know anything else. So we're going to break this down very succinctly and quickly. Don't worry, you'll have the recording if you need it. Take notes if you want. And again, put questions in the chat box if you need to ask questions. So phase one of your menstrual cycle is the follicular phase. It lasts about 7 to 10 days. What's going on hormone-wise is that your hypothalamus is signaling your pituitary gland to send a specific hormone called the follicle stimulating hormone to your ovaries. It's telling them to get ready to release another egg. Several egg follicles start to swell in preparation, and your estrogen is increasing because you're thickening that uterine lining so that you can host an egg potentially. All right. So physically, during your follicular phase, what are you feeling? You're going to have an increase in your physical energy. You may sometimes even feel restless. And what's also important when we're talking about this is actually your vaginal secretions. So initially, you're going to have little to no vaginal secretions, and then they're going to start to increase. Yellow or white in color, they can get a little tacky or sticky in nature, and that's all normal, okay? Your next phase is the ovulatory phase, your ovulation. This is only 3 to 4 days. So that hormone that's signaled by your pituitary gland to be secreted, the follicle stimulating hormone, is going to reach its peak, okay? And then another hormone called the luteinizing hormone, also from that same pituitary gland, which is up here, stimulates one follicle to swell further and then burst, which releases the egg into one of the fallopian tubes. And then that egg travels to the uterus. Estrogen levels are continuing to increase, further thickening the uterine lining and supporting the growth of your immune system cells in the uterus. Testosterone takes a quick surge, and then after ovulation takes a drop. So physically what's happening is your vaginal discharge is increasing. It's clear, wet, slippery, or stretchy, particularly on the peak day of your fertility. And as you move past that peak day, the discharge dries up. You may even feel some pelvic pain with the release of that egg, as well as a surge of energy or almost like a sense of depletion, along with some cravings or a headache. I feel that, like I feel this as soon as, and that's, I don't know if you guys can relate, but you know your cycle, and I can feel it as soon as that's passed. Like it's just like a release almost. So your third phase is the luteal phase. It's from 10 to 14 days. The corpus luteum, which is what the follicle from which the egg burst is called, grows on the surface of the ovary, causing it to produce more progesterone. The rise in progesterone signals the body to keep the uterine lining intact. It also signals the pituitary to stop sending out that follicle stimulating hormone, ensuring that only one egg is released into the uterus at a time. Estrogen levels are going to keep rising, and then towards the end of the cycle, the luteal phase, if the egg hasn't been fertilized, that corpus luteum is reabsorbed into the body. Progesterone production stops, triggering your period, and testosterone will increase toward the end of this phase. Physical energy declines, and your premenstrual symptoms, a lot of which are not normal, and we're going to get to that, may develop toward the end of your cycle. Symptoms such as bloating, irritability, headache, mood swings, and cravings. And finally, the phase that is most associated with our cycles is the menstrual phase, which is 3 to 7 days. Progesterone is dropping off, triggering the shedding of your uterine lining, which is your menstrual phase. you're bleeding. Estrogen peaks and then drops, stimulating your hypothalamus to prepare for another cycle of ovulation. And you're going to feel some pelvic cramping, low backache, fatigue, and cravings. And you're going to feel a sense of relaxation and relief as your estrogen peak passes. Okay. So that is in brief what's happening with your cycle. I know that was a lot, but I also thought it was super important that we go over that because most of us just don't know because of culture and other family things and how we were raised, right? So, what we're going to lay out are sustainable steps, whether you have PCOS or you struggle with infertility or endometriosis, they're going to work for most women. And the reason for that is because these are all hormone-based conditions. And what we're talking about is from a functional standpoint, i.e. bringing the endocrine system, which is in charge of your hormones, back into balance, okay? That's why, for the most part, this is applicable to all of us women, all right? We're trying to balance the endocrine system. All of these conditions and symptoms, PCOS, endometriosis, infertility, heavy periods, late periods, ovarian cysts, and so on, are usually, like probably over 80% of the time, due to an imbalance in these hormones. At times, it goes beyond that. Genetics can play a role, things like that. However, what you will not get from a traditional approach is attempting to find and fix the root cause, i.e. help your endocrine system and hormones find that balance. And we're going to focus on PCOS sort of as just a slate to look at and to better understand, but this is fairly applicable. So PCOS is really just this grouping of signs and symptoms, and they've clustered it. If you've not heard the full term, it's called polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay, that's what it stands for. You're looking at a lot of missed periods, irregular periods, unwanted hair growth, especially on the face, thinning of your hair on the head, acne, mood changes, sleep problems, infertility, depression, weight gain, and fatigue. So that's the whole brunt of it. What the Western world tells you is that the exact cause of it is unknown. So that's also helpful. Factors that play into it are an increase or an excess of androgen, could be genetics, an excess of insulin. And one thing is definitely clear throughout all is that what's associated with PCOS is low-grade inflammation throughout your entire body. Okay, so that's what we're really going to be talking about and focusing on. And if you have PCOS or if you've heard of it, it's pretty scary because what doctors throw out is a high increased risk of cancer, infertility, a lot of conditions related to obesity, such as high blood pressure, heart problems, and diabetes. And then they basically say, here's birth control or surgery. Now, I'm not saying that either of those options is in and of itself bad or wrong, because it's not, and they're not. And at times it may be the right answer for you. But for the most part, it is at the very least prematurely offered to most women, okay? Lots of reasons why birth control is not good. If you are a woman with hormonal imbalances and you are not using it to not get pregnant, these are the reasons why this is not good, right? So that's what birth control was originally created and intended for. So these statistics are back from 2011, but over 58% of women are on birth control. 31% of those are on it for menstrual cramps and pain, 28% to prevent migraines, 14% to prevent acne, and 4% to treat endometriosis. So almost not used for what it was originally intended for. And the catch with using it for this is that it doesn't cure any of those conditions above. It's just a band-aid for the symptom. It will continue to wreak havoc on your hormones because the longer the issue exists, you're still not fixing it, right? So it's just getting worse with a band-aid on top of it. When you're on the pill, it decreases your immune function. You have increased risk of yeast infections. It can change your gut health, increase blood clots, can cause food allergies. I mean, on and on and on. Why, if you don't need to be on it for the right reasons, you shouldn't be on the pill. And that was a brief intro there. Sarah Jones, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm also going to mute these crying babies and see if I can assist my sister quickly. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Sarah.
Hey everybody, it's hilarious. She's got crying babies and I have a preteen daughter that was losing her brains. Wait, are you talking to me? No, okay.
I just said that I told them that you're having a preteen meltdown.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm supporting hormones over here. I'll be there as soon as possible. Okay. And then obviously I'm coming to you guys from the car. But that is life. And that is the beauty of technology, is that we can do just this. So give me a second. I'm just got parked and I want to pull up notes and just make sure I stay on track, because you all know that I can scroll off and talk about all the things. I would love to know, like, the chat looks kind of quiet and small, or dwindling, or whatever the word is. Give me a second to get my brains together. But I would love to know, like, everything that she just said, I don't know, like Brooke Ann said, really hit home, because this was me. Even though I wasn't diagnosed with specific syndromes, like, I dealt with these things until I knew how to take care of my body. And it's I'm sure I missed this part, but it's such a huge disservice to women, and especially young girls. And that's what I think about a lot, because my young girl, who was out of her emotional stability tonight, like, she's coming into, like, she probably will be starting her period anytime. And so we're navigating a lot, but I am so grateful that I have the knowledge that I have and the tools that I have to not only have gotten myself. So my story, just in a nutshell, is like chronic UTIs, chronic yeast infections, horrible periods. I don't know. I think probably the only reason I wasn't really diagnosed with anything is because I just never saw a doctor to be diagnosed. I was told that was normal from the women in my life. So it was just kind of like, well, that's just kind of what it's like to be a woman. Like, sorry. So I was never even taken to the doctor for those things. I was given tons of antibiotics because I did have chronic UTIs and yeast infections. And when I say chronic, I'm talking like more months of the year than not. When I would get my cycle, I would also get one of those. So definitely like a topic that hits home for me. So anyways, one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about is diet and nutrition, because this is so huge and we can do so many things for what we have going on. Oh yeah, the birth control thing. I actually had my first period when I was 12 years old, and it was for 17 days long. And I went and told my mom, like, I'm still bleeding. Does this ever stop? And she was like, oh no, you shouldn't still be going. So we went to the doctor to find out that I was anemic. And the answer to that was to put me on birth control. And so I was on birth control for well over 10 years. In fact, when I went and talked to my provider at the time and told her I was ready to have children and told her my whole backstory, she was a new provider for me. She was just in shock. And she was a midwife that worked in an OB's clinic. And she just was really kind to inform me that, you need to off this birth control, like, for so many reasons. And she's actually the one that educated me on that, and explained to me, like, a lot of the problems that you still have that you're trying to fix in your life and heal in your body are not going to be corrected until we get you off this birth control. And the fact that you're wanting to have children, like, perfect timing. But she broke it to me that I had been on for so long, it would probably be hard for me to get pregnant. And so there's that aspect also of just like the undereducation and the not informing people and women. Like, no one told me that. All the times I went in to have my birth control like re-upped, nobody told me of the risks. And I know that we are in control and responsible of our own health and wellness. In even more now than ever, like the importance of us knowing what's going in our body, because it's not always being conveyed in a healthy way. But it's just that's kind of where my passion comes, is like, we're not told that when we walk into many offices. I won't say all of them, because I do have providers here now that are amazing at that. And if you find those people, you find those doctors, you find those OBs, like, hang on to them, because they are phenomenal. Because it's not always what you get. I don't really know what the disconnect is there. But with diet, we can do so much for our body. And that's also something that's not talked about. And Sarah mentioned that like the premature prescriptions, the premature methods, like why not step back and be like, hey, let's clean up your environment. Let's clean up your diet. Let's make sure we're nourishing your body, and let's see how your body responds to that before we jump to this like really extreme answer. And so as you're going through this, and I think she probably mentioned, and I've mentioned like to some of you in messages, is that we have like a PDF with some action steps for you guys. And I put some of the dietary things in there also, so you don't have to write this down and we can just be chit chatting. But when you're going through diet stuff, and I know because I've walked through this, a lot of times you get the list of things you need to avoid and you're like, okay, like, should I just like eat a piece of lettuce and maybe drink some water? And it can feel very much like everything in your world you can't have. I actually had a conversation with a gal in our group recently, and she was like, okay, give me the rundown. Like, what do I need to be avoiding? She's PCOS. And when I sent her the dietary list, she was like, that's everything I eat. I said, I know. And it can be very frustrating. So the point of telling you this tonight is not to trigger that defeated feeling, because if you are dealing with these things already, you already feel defeated. You already feel out of control. And I completely respect that and understand it and empathize with it. But diet is something that you can do every day to help your body heal on its own, because our food is here. What that whole cheesy, like, but still true saying of let your food be thy medicine and your medicine be your food. Like, let's start there, because that's foundational. And then we can move into using like God's creation and plants and high quality supplements to give the body what the diet can't give it. Okay. And I'm always going to stand firm on that, because there's just logic there, you guys. So with diet, you definitely want to be watching your gluten intake. And I would be safe to say, like, you want to be gluten-free. And I'm on my phone, so I can see you guys coming through on the chat, but I can't read out all of them just because of the way Zoom is set up on the phone. So if something comes through the chat that I need to stop and address, somebody let me know. But you definitely, I would strongly suggest you go gluten-free, and gluten can be hiding in places that you would never even think, like, some of the drinks that you mix up and make now, like some of the Herbalife drinks. That's what one of the girls today, or that recently we talked about. She was like, I drink these, are these good? And I was like, I don't know, go check the ingredients. She came back, she's like, they have like gluten and stuff in them. And I said, yeah, most of your like packaged, easy, convenient foods are not going to be what you want to put in your body through healing for anything. So watch that. Condiments can have gluten. And when you go gluten-free, you also just want to be, like, obviously wheat falls into that category. So gluten-free, dairy-free, I use this lightly because I am a fan of super high quality organic and raw dairy, but you have to be careful. And if you're in a spot where your body just needs a break, because dairy can process as sugar in the body and it can present inflammation, it can help to create mucus. So it's like, if your body's already in this place of, chronic inflammation, and Sarah mentioned that, then you might need to be dairy free at least for a little while, and then you could ease back in. But you want to always, even if you're eating dairy period, you want to be trying to choose a higher quality, like definitely raw, and if not raw, organic and low processed, because we go and process our dairy and then it changes all of it. And then we have these proteins that we struggle to digest. So no sugar. I say low sugar. I think I put low sugar on the list for you guys because it can get crazy. Sugar's hiding everywhere. So when I say low sugar, I mean, like, you shouldn't be slamming 6 cupcakes every other day, because you are literally feeding the problem. And most of us know about that, but sugar feeds unhealthy cells. Sugar feeds inflammation. Sugar causes inflammation. Sugar changes the alkalinity in your body, and we want to be moving towards alkaline and not acidic. Lots of reasons there that you don't want to be dealing with sugar, but also, which I'm about to talk about, is sugar really affects your insulin. And that's important with these situations. That's important with this type of thing. And when we're dealing with hormones, soy and corn, you really have to watch these, because when you go and you start to do gluten-free and dairy-free, and you start walking down the aisles and you find the gluten-free and dairy-free substitutions, a lot of those are packed full of soy and like modified corn stuff. Like a lot of dairy-free stuff is just modified corn product. So you really need to be careful when you start replacing or going dairy-free and gluten-free, that you're not replacing it with more junk that's still doing the same thing just because it doesn't fit into the gluten and the dairy compartment or department, sorry. So yeah, watch your soy, watch your corn, and both of those, soy specifically, really affects hormones in the body. It's a super dirty crop. I mean, you can go and DuckDuckGo or Google and you can just dive deep as far as you want into soy, but it's not a good thing for you, your kids, your babies, period. And it is a cheap crop for us to grow, and the byproduct, every bit of the crop can be used. So even the byproduct is being used in products, and it's like super not okay, but that's why it's everywhere now. It's because it's extremely profitable. Same thing with corn, and a lot of our corn products are created and just like it's so far from what our ancestors ate, you guys, even our wheat. It's just a completely different thing. So it's like, Jesus broke bread. It was different, promise you. It was not the same kind of bread. It was not Sara Lee or whatever there is now. It wasn't, promise. So the goal is to bring that inflammation down and not be contributing to any of the disruption that's happening in the body, so that it can get to a level playing field and start to work with what you're going to supplement with and put in so that it can heal the body. Okay. Catch next month's Oily Underground for sure, because everything I just said, next month we're going to talk about nutrition, and we'll be breaking this stuff down way more than I just did and giving you lots more tips on how to be really cautious and make sure that the nutrition and the food that you're putting in your body and in your home is actually supporting wellness, and we're not fighting against our diet. Because I'm telling you guys, I've experienced it personally. You move the needle when your nutrition works with your body. Okay, so I mentioned blood sugar. So blood sugar and insulin and the thyroid tend to be a problem in these situations. And we 100% want to be supporting hormones, which are chemical messengers in the body. So we want to be doing the things that support proper levels in hormones, but you can't just go chasing the hormones when you've gotten to a chronic state and you have a syndrome or something that's a little bit more intense than just like, oh, my hormones are just a little out of whack. So we definitely want to be using like the Progestins Plus and do we want to go underground? Are we good? No, we just want to keep going, because I'm going to yapping along. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, we're good. Okay, so you definitely want to be using your Pro Plus, your Clary Sage, those kinds of things that are going to be helping with estradiol and progesterone. Power Jize helps with